right.
We're at Bad Wolf Brewery this week, and my project for the week is a turntable setup. I bought this turntable at a Goodwill store, and my friend Eric is going to help me get it set properly. I know that the syncing is not proper for the speed of the record, and there's probably a lot of neat things that he can show us how to do. So that's what we're going to work on today.
I bet if we...
Go ahead.
I bet if we look it up, it's probably almost an exact copy of this that's a Technics.
It's supposed to be.
Yeah. So the one thing to be careful with on these is these. Because these will break off. There is a fix for them. I bought the fix, and this is something you and I could probably build our own. But if you look at mine, one of these, the tab snapped off. I bought the fix, and I only fixed one because this one was fine. But it's basically just a piece of bent aluminum that makes like a T, and then the thickness is basically the same as this tab. And so you basically just drill holes real carefully and screw it through the... and I put big washers on it to spread the load out over the plastic, so it didn't just make a crack. Because otherwise it would just crack right at that point.
I think mine might have been cracked, so that's why I did the...
oh, yeah.
So I put some plastic fix stuff on here, because mine had a crack in it. It doesn't look very good, but it was good enough for what I was wanting to do.
Sure, alright. So, let's check the pitch, I guess, while we're at... Oh, yeah, so you've already got that. So you secure the tone arm. Alright. Your height adjustment is about the same as mine. Okay. So, for 30... Oops. Oh, man, I have this problem sometimes, too. Can you turn yours... Oh, yeah, I can... Okay. Yep. Record, and then...
I think when I first... So I bought this last summer, and when I tried to adjust the pitch, I didn't think I could get it to go...
Almost. It's just about... Not quite. And what you may... I guess I'll have to see if I've got it or how hard it would be to get to. Your pot is definitely dirty.
Oh, this one? Okay.
Yep. I don't think it's the circuit, but what we can do is just kind of gently, do your normal pot clean.
Right.
Let's see.
So what we're doing here is we're trying to set the pitch properly, and if you set it, this probably won't show up properly on camera, but what you can do is it for 33, it's the middle one? Is that right, or is it?
It's the very bottom one.
Okay, so the very bottom one. You adjust this pitch knob here, and it will set the turntable so that it spins at the right speed. And the way you know it's working is because there's a strobe at the bottom, and the dots will appear to stop on the very bottom line there.
Like that, we're almost there. As you can see, it jumps a little bit, and that means our pot is probably dirty. Occasionally, the actual circuitry is bad, but we're getting... I think this might just be a dirty pot.
Okay.
So, all right.
So that might have to be cleaned. That's something I can do on my own. There are a couple settings on the inside as well. There's a couple more pots underneath the turntable, which you've probably seen before. So we were trying to just move the pot back and forth to get some of the dirt worked out of it. And if that doesn't work, I have spray that I can use to spray in there.
Panasonic and Technics and JCPenney, probably their models that almost look identical to each other. Oh, come on.
I can hold this side.
Okay, actually, I'm too far away. That's part of my problem. So I was trying to stretch it too far. There we go. Where's the...
I got my finger over the... Oh, okay. I think you're too far over.
Let's see. Yep, it's going to come this way. There's looking over. Is the belt on? Oops, it slipped off the gear there because it slipped underneath here, but we can fix that like that. And that like that. And yeah, if you can just guide it back up and on here.
I think it's on here, so if you got it.
Almost, let's see.
There we go.
All right. Oop.
Oh, it's too far down now.
Oh, did it slip off the pulley?
Yeah, it needs to go up just a little bit.
There we go.
All right.
Okay, cool. Put your slip mat back on. This thing cleaned up really nice, though. I mean, it's
even if it was filthy when I got it.
Even if it was dirty, I'm like, well, it's not dinged up. You know, especially this being MDF.
That was one thing I was worried about, is that had gotten soaked with water or something
yeah,
like that.
Yep, where it starts to delaminate. And
so this turntable I got at a Goodwill store, and I paid $16 for it, I think.
Yeah, it's totally worth that.
It was really, really dirty. The cover, luckily it did have a cover on
Yep.
it, and the cover was pretty dirty, but I was able to clean it up.
Yeah, and it's not scratched too much, though. And it doesn't look at what you find a lot of times is somebody will have taped it onto the turntable, which is a good thing to do to keep it from breaking or getting loose. Then if that tape stays on there too long, getting the adhesive off without etching the plastic can be really hard.
Yeah.
The one I've got upstairs that I got from Ben, my coworker, he had just played it without the dust cover, but he left the tape on the dust cover that it had come on, and so he had taken it off at one point but not cleaned the adhesive, so I had to clean the adhesive off, and I got most of it off, but you can tell there's still, like, after it had sat for a month, like, oh, the little sheen of adhesive had picked up a bunch of dust, and then you can see a couple spots where it etched just a tiny bit. I mean, I could probably buff it out with some Novus plastic polish, but it's one of those, I got it from him for $40. In the shape it's in, if I were to resell, it's probably worth $150 at the most. So like, I want it to play stuff. If it doesn't look pristine, I'm fine with it.
Hold your beer up to the light once. All right, so we're gonna take a look at the stylus on here now. So go ahead.
I need to get my magnifying loupe. Since this is a little harder to take off and a little more work, we won't do that, but I'm just going to use a flashlight, and this is I'll start with 2.5 times magnification jeweler's loupe. These are handy to have for things like this, and what we're looking for is that the stylus is elliptical like it's supposed to be, that it's not super sharp or anything like that, and this one, it seems to be okay. And then what we'll probably do next is clean it a little bit and see what we can see. And I might get under some heavier magnification here. So I'm going to lift the cueing arm up. There we go. This is 7.5 times magnification. And you have to get right up close to it. Looks okay, and what you're looking for is to make sure it's not worn super sharp. When they wear, they tend to get more pointed, and that'll dig into your records and carve a groove. So I think we're okay to try it. We'll try it.
All right, we're gonna move positions here, and we'll hook this up to a receiver. And
actually, before we do that, we should check the weight, the tracking force.
Oh, okay.
And do you have a? Okay, that's how you adjust your tracking force. And this is your anti-skate. And so generally you want this about 1.5. So what the anti-skate is, because the record is spinning, just like being on a merry-go-round when you're a kid, it's going to want to push things to the outside.
Okay.
And so this is just a little bit of tension that it puts on the tone arm to push in, so that it counteracts that centrifugal force trying to push it out.
Oh, okay.
So it doesn't, if you have no bias, it's very easy for it to actually kind of fling the stylus out. At 33 1/3 RPMs, you probably won't see it, but it'll actually favor one channel because you're pushing it towards the outer groove, and it'll tend to skate around a lot more and not catch the grooves and tracks. So what we're going to do though is check the tracking force on it, and this is a tiny tracking force scale. And most styluses, you can look it up for your stylus. We probably don't know what this one wants for sure, but most of them want between 1.5 and 2 grams of tracking force. And if you're not sure, come down a little bit on the high side, because it's actually better for it to be a little heavier than too light. If it's too light, it'll want to skate around on the record with the possibility of scratching it. If it's too heavy, you know, eventually it'll wear a little bit more. By the way, what I did, most turntables have this, you can set the platter to the off position. So you can see the light comes on when I move the cueing arm, but it's not spinning the platter. And that's specifically so that we can actually lift this and put it on the little dot here. Let it cue it down. And we have 1.95 grams of tracking force. So, like I said, since we don't know for sure on this, that's right in the ballpark of what most of them want, 1.5 to 2. And I like to be a little bit on the heavy side. So I think we'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
The other thing we can quick look at, this is really hard to see, is the geometry.
Oh, is this? Are you looking for your mirror?
Okay. Yeah, so this is a protractor. So also what you want to do is, if you look, these aren't as pronounced, but in these standard style head shells, instead of just a hole that it's mounted through, it's actually a slight notch. And what that's for is so you can change the angle just a little bit. This is an S-shaped tone arm, so it's designed to actually give you a little bit of that angle on the headstock, because on the head shell, because, you know, as it's coming over the record, you want it to be straight in the groove. So to compensate for the angle, you can first, you've got the S arm. Some of them are straight with just an angle just on the headstock. This, because it's a Technics knockoff, probably made by them, or, you know, designed to look like them, they actually use, a lot of theirs use the S-shaped tone arm that's supposed to give you a more gentle approach to getting that angle on. But what this is I don't know, I'll hold it up, and I don't know how this is going to photograph on the camera, but it's a mirror, so you can look down on it, and you basically put the stylus on those 2 dots, and then you're looking for the sides of the cartridge to actually line up with the lines, so that that tells you kind of the angle you actually want it to come across, and it make sure at 2 different points that it's lined up, so it stays lined up throughout the whole record. So again, with the spindle off, we turn it and we gently bring it down on that X, and then I'll use my flashlight again, and it looks to me like, for the most part, it's very parallel to the lines, which is what you want. So I think we've got a good angle on here. I think it's pretty good. So this table was probably set up pretty decently at one time. Other than the bias, or anti-scape as it's sometimes called, this looks like it's actually set up fairly decent. So I think we're ready to put on a record we don't necessarily care too much about, and give it a try.
Okay, so do you want to try your turntable or your receiver that you have there?
Sure. Yeah. Here we go.
Okay. Do you want me to move the turntable over there?
No. What I'll do is I'll move the receiver to right here.
Okay.
And then I think those cords are long enough.
Okay.
So.
Hold tight. We're going to get set up here.
Okay. So.
So we got a receiver set up over here. Can't see it very well, but we got a couple speakers and just a receiver setup that has a phono input, and we're just going to try out the turntable. I have just another thrift store record that I'm trying out. It's not super clean. The one side is pretty dirty and the other side is pseudo clean, I guess you'd say. We're just going to try out and see what it sounds like.
And we lost our pitch control a little bit again. I'm going to try and dial it back in again. Should probably check the belt again. It's going really slow. So we're still on 33.
You think the belt has got oil on it or something, maybe?
Well, maybe, so we're just barely spinning here. Let's take a look. Secure that. So the belt is on. So let's And you can obviously check the speed and look at it without the slip cover on. Your slip mat. Going. Oh yeah, I think we might have gotten a little oil on.
So what we could do...
Oh, there we go.
Does it look like about the right speed then again?
Yeah, we're getting back to very close. That's where we were before.
Should we try it once more, knowing that we might need a belt or cleaning up the belt?
Yeah, yep. That's and on this one it's really easy to do. One adjustment we didn't talk about, but that you might have to do. This looks fine, but you can adjust how high the cueing arm goes up.
Okay.
When you go up and down, and most of them, it looks like this one is one of those. What you do is you push this down all the way, and it's a little hard to see. I'll raise the cueing arm. Actually, I'm going to turn that off. You basically push this down with your fingers.
Let's see the flashlight real quick.
Yeah, push that down, and there's a screw right there.
Okay,
I'll move my hand. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to move my hand. There's a screw right there, and you just turn that. If you want it to not go as high when you have the cueing arm up, you tighten that so clockwise it would lower this. If it's too low, you can raise it by going counterclockwise, and then you just basically lift that back up, and that's just basically how far that arm goes up and down when you use the lever. And so
okay.
yours is nice and smooth. There's actually a little tiny hydraulic cylinder in there that makes it so that the arm goes up and down gently and slowly. So because as you can see, the up it goes almost in the same time, but when I drop it, it goes down very slow. I drop the lever fast, but the arm still goes down nice and slow, which is what you want. You want it to slowly set down and catch the first groove on the record. So,
right. So it's not bouncing that way too.
It's not bouncing, and yep. So, all right. I think we're back to the record on. Oh, that was me.
There we go.
And we still have to work on the speed a little bit, but all right. So let's bring it down. And so this record is kind of trashed, but it's playing it.
Are you telling me that I wasted $1.88?
You might have. So we're playing records, and the speed still needs a little work, but it's playing. So what we're going to do is put on a record I have that I know the grooves are clean. It's just a record I don't really care about. So let's go pause, you guys, and we'll go dig something out and see what we get. Yeah, that's pretty clean.
It's your lucky day. We've got a K-Tel record we're going to play for you guys. For you kids, you probably don't know what K-Tel is, but this was a company that did kind of a compilation style records that you could buy. You could get all these great songs of the day in one album for one price, all your favorite hits. So we're going to put this on and get ready to play. Take my Frisbee off.
Alright, we're going to clean the stylus here quick. And this is a stylus brush. You can get it from record supply stores or Amazon or wherever you get it. It's a real fine, it's I think sable hair, it's a real fine bristles. And all you do is basically put it under your stylus and just gently basically pull it forward. Just like a record goes through there, and you can kind of see we actually got a ball of dust off of it. Let me get the more aggressive option also. So that's good for just dust. Here we go. This is a really thin sliver of a magic eraser that you get for cleaning your house. It's a sponge, but it's got a slight abrasive in it. And to clean your stylus, again, you just basically gently go up and down on it. This will help if you've got more gunk stuck to it than just dust. Some people turn the wheel off so that the platter doesn't spin. Put this on it and just gently raise and lower it with the cueing arm. That's another way you can do it, but that'll just make sure there's no gunk on the stylus.
So does the stylus actually drop between the fibers then?
Yeah,
on that?
yeah,
and that's how it
and it just basically just gives it a gentle abrasive cleaning. Because if you know what a stylus is, really it's just a chip of diamond usually that's kind of elliptical shape, and it's glued onto the arm that it's on.
Okay.
And so you basically are just looking to keep that clean. And I've had it with records that I've deep cleaned, which I've got the stuff here to deep clean a record. We can talk about that later. But sometimes when you deep clean it, you'll clean gunk and then you'll just loosen gunk deeper in the grooves. So you get halfway through a record and there'll be a ball of fuzz or goo on your stylus. And you can hear it. It'll start to sound really muddy. You know, it just doesn't sound good. And you look at the stylus and it's got goo all over it. And so you clean the stylus. So a few crackles in this one, but not nearly as many as with Frank. Weird. So this is not bug spray. It says it is. I stole the sprayer when it was out. This is a mix of 2/3 at least distilled, if not deionized water, 1/3 isopropyl alcohol, and not just your normal drugstore isopropyl. That's about 90 or 91% pure. This is like the 99.9% pure. So you mix it 2/3 and 1/3, and then you put about 2 drops of Dawn or Dawn-like dishwashing detergent in it. Okay. And so what that does is the water is obviously the main media that you want. The isopropyl is a mild solvent to clean anything that's stuck on, and then the iso also helps it evaporate off faster. And what the dishwashing detergent does in here is acts as a surfactant. It makes the water wetter. So the grooves on a record are so small because of the way water molecules want to bind together in multiples. They'll actually sit over the grooves where they're not getting all the way down into the groove. And if you put a little dishwashing detergent in, it makes the water the molecules not want to stick to each other, and they actually sink down into the grooves. So,
okay.
So you just spray this on, and you can really give it a good spray. And then this is a record cleaning brush. You can use these wet or dry, and just drag it across. One thing you'll notice, you probably can't see it too well in this, but with the dishwashing detergent, this turns into a nice smooth sheen. If you don't have the dishwashing detergent in it and you were to look over it with a light, you'd see kind of spotty, gloppy, that the water is kind of binding to itself and not going down the grooves. And an interesting thing you can do is you can play the record wet, which is something I never would have thought of till I started getting back into records. So we had some crackles at the beginning, and I don't know if this will fix it, but a lot of records I have that have just a hint of surface noise in the dead wax, if you play it wet, a lot of that surface noise goes away.
All right, so since we're going to move to something different here as far as what we're going to show for content, I wanted to show you guys the record player real quick and just kind of sum up the work that we did on this. All right, so here's the turntable once more, and as Eric mentioned, he used this scale to make sure that the pressure of the stylus was set properly. He also used this protractor, which you can use to make sure the geometry of the needle is set properly. Is that close enough, I guess?
Yeah. Yep. And actually, it's the cartridge. So this, we should maybe differentiate. I think Chris can show it here. I'll put the flashlight on it. So what you see here, the orange plastic on the sides and a little bit towards the front is considered the stylus. That comes as a unit. And you can actually slide that out. If you just wiggle it, it'll pull out. And what you see behind it, the metal piece that's kind of rectangular with the wires attached to it, that's actually the cartridge. And so with the cartridge, the stylus basically, when it goes through the grooves, the needle moves back and forth. And when the needle or stylus moves back and forth, it's basically vibrating pieces of metal inside the cartridge, and then that's amplifying them to send to the actual amplifier. So you can replace the stylus without replacing the cartridge. The cartridges last almost forever unless they somehow get crazy damage, like something physically hits your head shell or anything. You go through styluses, the styluses will last thousands and thousands of hours, but they're replaceable. And so you just have to know the brand and model of your cartridge, and then you can get replacement stylus for it for not very much money. So if you have any question at all about your stylus, go ahead and replace it. It's cheap, and it'll always save your records.
All right, and then so as we discussed, there's the pitch control. I apologize, my camera's not focusing very well. There's the pitch control, the speed, the Q arm, and then the biasing that we set. And then we didn't end up adjusting it, but that round piece on the back is the weight that you can adjust if you need to, if your needle pressure is too high or too low. So those are the basic things we did on this turntable. Hope you found some useful information on this. We're going to move on to some record cleaning. We'll show you that here in a second. So our last thing for today is we're going to look at a record cleaner that Eric's put together. And I don't know if you saw this on a website somewhere, or if this is something you came up with.
It's just something. It's a hybrid of some thoughts I had, and then some things I saw online, and some random things that worked out really well. So all this is a sheet of plywood, just a square plywood. I pounded basically a T-nut, or not a T-nut, but a square-headed bolt. Drilled a hole and basically pounded this in to the bottom, and then I covered the top. This is just drawer liner like you'd use for a toolbox or something. You can get it in sheets. I just unrolled some of it and stapled it to the sides, and a wing nut. And then the key piece for this to me was, so this is actually the cover to an outdoor watertight electrical junction box. Okay. The 4 holes there are what it comes with, and it's a round electrical junction box that you'd have conduit coming both sides. I drilled the hole in the middle, obviously, and the key is it's exactly the same size as a label, and it has a gasket on it. And the reason for that, let me get the record we're going to clean. And this is a used record, and it's a little dusty. The reason for that is I want to be able to clean all the grooves really deeply with liquid without damaging the label. So if you look, that just goes on the screw bolt sticking up from the middle. You put the cover on the label and tighten down your wing nut, and it doesn't have to be terribly tight. So this will hold it in place. You don't want the record to be turning, and you want to keep the liquid off the label. So, and again, this is the solution we talked about: 2/3 distilled or better deionized water, 1/3 99.9% pure isopropyl alcohol, and a couple drops of dishwashing detergent. And you just spray it all over on the record. And again, you just use this rounded velvet. There are a couple variations on this. This is a hard plastic one. I've seen some. In fact, I have one that's a wood handle with foam underneath. I don't like that one as well, because the foam cushioning on it tends to make it more of an arc on here. It's hard to get a good solid contact all the way across the record because it's a little bit domed in the middle. So these are cheap, and I like them. So once it's on there...
Were you using your terry cloth sponge, or is that for real dirty?
We'll get to that, actually.
Okay,
yep.
All right.
Yep.
The gun here.
Nope. And then this, since it's not on a turntable, you just kind of have to simulate the motion of going around, right? And I just kind of go around and following the grooves, basically. Go around a few times that way. And as you can see, the record's staying nice and still, and we're getting all the way right up to the label. And then we're done with that. So one thing I use this for, this is just a piece of sponge covered with microfiber. It's actually for washing cars. I like it because microfiber is nice and soft, but it has a little rigidity to it because of the sponge in the middle. And I'll just kind of dry this off on there, and then we'll go around the other way. You can actually do this in reverse. It's fine because it's not a stylus. You're not going to hurt the grooves, and you're actually going to pull some stuff out that possibly was lodged that you were missing going the other direction. So you can do that. And then the final thing I do to dry it is, since this is nice soft microfiber, you can just put this on the record, kind of guide it around, and that'll take off most of the rest of the liquid. And then your record is basically dry. Like we talked about earlier, you can play them wet, but I tend to do this with a lot of liquid, and sometimes I even let it sit for a little bit. I'll spray it on, use a few passes with this to get it all down in the grooves and evened out. and then let it sit for 10 minutes or so. The next phase of this, which I haven't gotten to yet, is this attachment, which I got online. This actually goes on a vacuum cleaner, and you can hook it up to a vacuum cleaner and then actually vacuum the liquid off, and that will vacuum the gunk off with it. A project you might see later, I'm working on making just a wood plinth, plywood plinth platter like this, but that's on a gear motor, so it'll actually turn the record. So I could actually spray cleaner on it and have it slowly turn, just hold that on it, and then actually just vacuum the liquid off with this in a vacuum cleaner, just like the really expensive vacuum record cleaners that you see. But this actually does a really good job. I've bought used records that sounded really muffled and kind of bad, and I did this on them, and they came out and sounded really great. What you will run into is if it's really dirty down in the grooves, you'll want to check your stylus partway through, because this will also loosen, as I think I talked about before. If there's gunk down in the grooves, this might not get them on the first cleaning pass. It might loosen them, and you might end up with just a ball of dust and goo on the tip of your stylus after playing the record a little bit. So you'll want to, if you've really deep cleaned something you think is maybe not super clean, you might want to check it halfway through the record and use the stylus brush like we talked about to just gently pull the gunk off the stylus, and then you're good to go.
Okay, sounds great. Looks like a...
The other, I guess, thing I should mention is when you wet clean, water, humidity is a really, really good way to dissipate static. Brand new records that are clean, I'll sometimes do just a quick wet, spray them down a little bit, and sometimes I'll just spray this onto the cleaner, not directly on the record, and run it around once or twice, just that amount of liquid, because new records have the most static on them, and a lot of times they'll come with sleeve dust or cardboard dust that's just from the manufacturing and packaging process, and what that'll do is get all that dust off of it, and it'll dissipate the static so that it doesn't try to draw more dust to it. Old records that have been played and cleaned a couple times, they don't have the static on them anymore.
Okay, that's great. Some good record information here from Bad Wolf Brewery. Thank you for watching.